In India, landslides and floods claim dozens of lives.
Rescue teams are kept busy digging through the mud in search of survivors. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Marcos administration combats the escalating prevalence of fake news in the Philippines. Senate begins its thorough deliberation on the proposed 2024 national budget. Seoul reaffirms its ties with Washington and Tokyo ahead of Camp David summit. Italy's Mount Etna blows its top again. And YouTuber Mr. Beast teases his biggest video ever. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. highlights the significance of the Matatag curriculum in enhancing the educational needs of Filipino youth, addressing the challenges and concerns associated with the K-12 program. The president stresses the versatility of the new curriculum, noting that it offers options tailored for students, whether they choose to pursue vocational training or higher education at a university. Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte says that the curriculum reduces the extensive learning competencies from 11,000 to 3,000, substantially alleviating the workload for younger students while enhancing efficiency for those at advanced levels. This is in line with the Department of Education's goal of decongesting the K-12 curriculum.
In response to the escalating prevalence of fake news in the Philippines, the Marcos administration has initiated the Media Information Literacy, or MIL project, aimed at countering misinformation and disinformation. Communications Undersecretary Emerald Redao underscores education as the primary approach, emphasizing the importance of equipping individuals with the skills to effectively distinguish between credible and questionable sources. Social Welfare Undersecretary Edu Punay states that the Department of Social Welfare and Development will also fully commit to the project, along with other departments.
Senator Christopher Lawrence Go is strategizing to bolster grassroots sports development by formalizing the Philippine National Games, or PNG. Ayla Dabu tells us more.
The Senate Committee on Sports is deliberating on Senate Bill 423, which aims to nurture athletes with the potential to excel in international competitions and address the enduring challenges faced by Philippine sports in general. Should the bill be enacted into law, it will establish the Philippine National Games as the foremost national sports competition taking place biannually with the aim of motivating local governments to actively foster sports development in rural areas. Philippine Sports Commission Chairperson Richard Bachman acknowledged that the country has not witnessed the national games for the past 5 years. However, there are plans to hold simultaneous competitions for both PNG and Batang Pinoy from December 17 to 22 of this year. Ayla Dabu for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A study shares that Philippine households are likely to spend more this year. JD Mahinay has the details.
According to BMI Country Risk and Industry Research, household spending in the Philippines is expected to increase by 5.5% this year. The firm notes, based on 2010 prices, it estimates that the country's total household spending would reach 12 trillion pesos. a significant increase from 10.9 trillion pesos in 2019, the year before the pandemic. BMI clarifies that this is due to the easing inflation experienced in the country. The firm, however, notes if inflation remains relatively high compared to the government's target range between 2 and 4%, household spending power may weaken. This year, the Philippines' inflation lowered from 8.7% in January to 4.7% in July. BMI adds that the country's consumer confidence jumped from its low figures in the second quarter report of 2020 and is starting to recover. JD Mahinay reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Senate begins its thorough deliberation on the proposed 2024 national budget. Natalie Pichi has the report.
Senator Juan Edgardo Sani Angara presides over the deliberation briefing from the Development Budget Coordination Committee on the proposed 2024 National Expenditure Program. The proposed national budget for 2024 lies at 5.768 trillion pesos, 9.5% higher compared to this year's 5.268 trillion pesos appropriation. According to the Department of Budget and Management, the said budget aims to secure a future-proof and sustainable community designed to stimulate the country's high-growth trajectory. This is anchored to the Philippines' target to attain upper middle income status by 2025. Meanwhile, the Budget Department prioritizes 10 sectors concerning the budget proposal, namely education, public works, health, interior and local government, defense, transportation, social welfare, agriculture, judiciary, and labor and employment. Natalie Pichi reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, says it would study the proposed public utility jeepney fare hikes raised by several transport groups. Last week, a 2 peso fare increase for all public utility vehicles nationwide was submitted to the LTFRB. This is due to the consecutive weeks of oil price hikes. LTFRB, however, is considering many factors for the said fare hike petitions. The agency notes that a thorough review is needed if the fare hike request holds ground.
The Department of Agriculture justifies the expected rice imports for the year. DA expects 300,000 to 500,000 metric tons of rice imports from India and Vietnam. The department advises the public not to resort to panic buying of rice. The agency assures that it is preparing for the worst-case scenario of the country not having enough staple grain to feed the populace. According to DA, the possibility of a rice shortage is due to the El Niño phenomenon, typhoons, and conceivable export restrictions by neighboring nations. Meanwhile, the Marcos administration reassures the public that there would be enough rice for the country after the dry spell next year.
The United States-ASEAN Business Council, or US-ABC, has conveyed its interest in assisting the Department of Defense to enhance its capabilities in light of escalating tensions in the region. During their visit, the US-ABC delegation proposed a diverse array of projects that align with the strategic objectives of the department, including collaborations in areas such as cybersecurity, pension programs, and healthcare coverage, among others. Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. expresses gratitude for the delegation's collaborative proposals. The visit of the US-ABC delegation stands as a significant engagement, underscoring the robust alliance between the Philippines and the U.S.
The National Security Council, or NSC, has announced that the Philippine government is preparing for another resupply mission in Ayungin Shoal, regardless of a potential reaction or opposition from China. The NSC states that due to security concerns, they will refrain from providing further details regarding the matter. NSC spokesperson Jonathan Malaya says that the country will never stop trying to provide the much-needed supplies to the Filipino troops, especially as it is aligned with the country's interest. He also reiterates that the Philippine government is always ready for diplomatic talks with China.
Coming up, Ethiopian representatives vote in favor of the state of emergency over violence in the Amhara region. Seoul calls for strong cooperation ahead of Camp David summit. And political killings resume in Ecuador less than a week after a high-profile assassination. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Na kailangan handa kang lumaban sa isip at sa salita at sa gawa dahil pag meron ka niyan, tiyak! Nasa jackbox round ka aabante.
Please welcome our Tara Gamers na Dakilang Extra.
At kung makakasama ko kayo before, kaya lang nagkataon, may shooting ako. Kinlaim ko na, may susunod pa. And this is the susunod po.
Kung mayroong 60 minutes sa isang oras, ilang minuto naman mayroon sa isang linggo? Ano nangyayari?
Maiksi, bias ko.
Kasi pa ng baliso mo eh. And this is Tara Game! Level up!
Puro na kayong dalawa! Ha? Ligtas yung sarili nyo! Bakit? Nahiya ako sa short. Nahiya ako yung sarili. Puro na kayo.
Usap tayo. This is Fast Interrogation with Tita Girl. Love life or career. Diretso lang. Ready? Opo. Get your arms up. Ano? Oh. Head back. Palo.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Romy Andriana Rissoa, Madagascar's top aide to President Andry Rajoelina, and a French associate Philippe Tabouteya have been arrested in Britain on suspicion of seeking bribes from a British mining company to secure licenses to operate in Madagascar. The pair was requesting around two on the island nation. The latter request was for a stake in all the Madagascan projects of gem fields. Adriana Rissoa and Tabouteya were remanded in custody on Saturday, where they could each face up to 10 years in prison. No further details about the alleged offenses were provided.
Deposed Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum is now facing charges of high treason and undermining national security amid international pressure forcing his reinstatement.
En tout état de cause, le gouvernement nigérien a réuni à ce jour les éléments nécessaires de preuve pour poursuivre devant les instances nationales et internationales compétentes le président déchu et ses complices locaux et étrangers pour haute trahison et atteinte à la sûreté intérieure et extérieure du Niger suite à ses échanges avec les nationaux, des chefs d'État étrangers et des responsables d'organisations internationales.
The U.S. State Department has expressed its disappointment at the charges brought against Bazoum, calling the charges as completely unwarranted and unjustified. Bazoum is currently being held with his family in the basement of his palace.
Ethiopia's House of People's Representatives vote in favor of the state of emergency over violence in the Amhara region. This after an airstrike has killed at least 26 people in Ethiopia's war-torn region. The strike in Finote Selam was the most severe since clashes between members of the Ethiopian army and a local militia known as Fano erupted across Amhara after months of tensions.
ተያያዥ የሆኑ የሰላምና ጸጥታ ጉዳዮች ህገ መንግስታዊ ስርዓቱን የሚያናጉ የሀገርን ህልውናና የህዝብን ደህንነት አደጋ ላይ የሚጥሉ ናቸው። ስለዚህ ሁኔታውን ለመቀልበስ የአስቸኳይ ጊዜ አዋጅ በጣም አስፈላጊ ሆኖ ተገኝቷል።
The unrest revived fears about the stability of Africa's second most populous country, 7 months after a peace deal ended a brutal 2-year conflict in the neighboring region of Tigray. Ethiopia's rights watchdog voiced grave concern over the fierce fighting in the region this month and condemned a wave of arrests of ethnic Amharas. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission said that while heavy fighting had subsided in major urban areas since August 9, it continues in other parts of the region and remains a major concern until a sustainable solution is in place.
Chinese military scientists claim to have developed technology that enables lasers to fire infinitely without any buildup of wasted temperature. According to scientists at the National University of Defense Technology in Changsha, Hunan Province, a new cooling system was developed which allows high-energy lasers to operate infinitely. This negates the backlash of laser weapon development, as it is said to eliminate the harmful heat generated during the operation of high-energy lasers. Chinese scientists add that with the new technology, weapons can now beam their lasers without any interruption or degradation in performance. Meanwhile, the new cooling system was said to use advanced structures and optimize gas flow. This is to remove heat inside the laser weapon structure.
Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu is visiting Russia and Belarus in a display of solidarity as Western nations strive to isolate these two allies over the Ukraine war. Li embarked on a 6-day journey during which he will participate in the Moscow Conference on International Security and engage with defense officials from Russia and various other nations. Delegates from about 100 countries and 8 international organizations have been extended invitations to partake in discussions centered around the creation of a multipolar global order. The aim is to explore avenues for reinstating positive international cooperation in light of aggressive assertions made by Euro-Atlantic elites.
Leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan are scheduled to meet for a trilateral summit. Catherine Ortula reports.
Seoul's leader, Yoon Suk-yeol, calls for strong security cooperation with the United States and Japan ahead of the Camp David summit this coming Friday. According to Yoon, the trilateral meet is scheduled to run over the weekend.
4월 뒤 캠프 데이비드에서 개최될 한미일 정상회의는 한반도와 인도 태평양 지역의 평화와 번영에 기여할 3국 공조의 새로운 이정표가 될 것입니다.
His speech marks the 78th anniversary of Korea's National Liberation Day. Seoul also aims to address Pyongyang's growing nuclear threats on the said meeting. Pyongyang has already conducted about 100 missile tests since last year, and this worries its neighboring nations. South Korea and Japan record that many of Pyongyang's missiles were nuclear-capable weapons and were fired within striking distance of their neighboring nations. Earlier this week, Pyongyang's leader Kim Jong-un toured major munitions factories and ordered a drastic increase in the production of missiles and other weapons. Catherine Ortula, reporting from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Malaysia's High Court has acquitted and discharged former Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin of 4 counts of abuse of power involving 232.5 million ringgit, approximately 2.8 billion pesos.
So what they're doing now is to taint Tan Sri Muhyiddin's image, Perikatan Nasional image, and everyone else around us, so that people would see that Tan Sri Muhyiddin also is a corrupted person.
This counts as a big win for the former premier, though he still faces 3 other charges of money laundering. Judge Muhammad Hamil Hussein ruled that the 4 abuse of power charges were vague, flawed, and unfounded because they did not specify the details of the offenses committed. Muhyiddin was charged with using his position then as Prime Minister and President of Parti Brimubi Bersatu Malaysia to obtain bribes from 3 companies, Bukhari Equity, Nepturis, and Mamfor, on behalf of his political party. In a press conference after he was acquitted, Muhyiddin reportedly said he had always acknowledged that the charges brought against him were politically motivated.
I have always been fighting against corruption, abuse of power, and that has been the principle that I stood for from the very beginning, and that is what my party stands for all the time. So what has been happening now, as I mentioned, this is part of political and selective persecution.
Muhyiddin was Malaysia's 8th Prime Minister from March 2020 to August 2021, assuming the top position following a political maneuver known as a Sheraton move.
Okay, yeah, it's not that it is corruption, because you have to go to court and let the court decide what's the real situation. And I am innocent until proven guilty by the court.
PN best! PN best! Perikatan! Yes!
2 of Thailand King Rama X's sons have returned home after nearly 30 years, leading many to believe that there may be a paradigm shift in the works. Christina Gira has the details.
The 2 estranged sons of Thailand's King Rama X hope to return to the country soon after an unexpected visit has fueled speculation among many in the kingdom. The brothers' surprise trip was their first back to their homeland in 27 years. Though the royal palace has not released any official information or public comment on their visit, social media has been filled with Thais speculating on the reason for their visit. Their return sparked interest among many in the kingdom and drove speculation that the sons may officially be welcomed back into the royal family after almost 3 decades of living overseas. Vachareson arrived in Thailand last week and visited a daycare center for underprivileged children. His brother, Chakriwat Vivacharawangse, arrived several days later, and the 2 visited Sirara Hospital together. Vachareson and Chakriwat are among the 4 sons of the king and his second wife, Sujarni Vivacharawangse, born Yuvavida Polpraset. The brothers' trip to their homeland comes at a difficult time for the royal family after the king's oldest child, Princess Bajara Khityaba, remains in a medical facility following a coma due to a severe heart arrhythmia. Christina Gira for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ukraine claims to have stopped 3 waves of drones and missiles in the southern Ukraine city of Odesa, with the falling debris damaging multiple buildings in the area and injuring 3 people. The attacks came after Russia fired warning shots at a cargo vessel heading for a city near Odesa. 2 waves of attack drones and 8-caliber type sea-based missiles were launched to Odesa in retaliation to the vessel trying to break their lockdown on the Black Sea. The Russian Defense Ministry reports that their air defense system successfully intercepted and brought down an undisclosed number of Ukrainian drones over the Belgorod region. This action was executed without causing any damage or casualties.
The Islamic State, or IS, has claimed responsibility over an attack on a military bus that killed at least 33 soldiers in eastern Syria. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the military bus was surrounded by jihadist forces before opening fire and incinerating the convoy. They added that more than 10 soldiers were injured and dozens are still missing. IS has eyed 2 military buses with heavy weapons and notes that these attacks will continue. IS members also killed 43 people and government forces when they attacked the city of Raqqa and Hama. The United Nations warned the IS group against their continued threats and attacks. Meanwhile, more than 500,000 of people in Syria have died and been forced out of their homes due to pre-war skirmishes. This war started after President Bashar al-Assad's government crushed the Arab Spring peaceful protests in 2011.
The unprecedented violence shaking Ecuador claimed the life of another political leader, bringing the number of politics-related slayings within the last 4 weeks to 3, including that of a presidential candidate. The fatal shooting of Pedro Briones, a local leader of Revolucion Ciudadana, the party of former President Rafael Correa, was confirmed by Luisa Gonzalez, the front-runner in Sunday's special presidential election. The shooting happened in the northern province of Esmeraldas less than a week after the South American country was rocked by the shooting of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio, who had a famously tough stance on organized crime and corruption. Thousands of people have been killed over the past 3 years in Ecuador as the country has transformed into a major drug trafficking hub and cartel-aided local gangs battle for control of the streets, prisons, and drug routes. Gonzalez criticized the government of President Guillermo Lasso for lacking control inside detention facilities, which she said prisoners in organized crime have turned into their productive and recreational centers. The country's national police tallied 3,568 violent deaths in the first 6 months of this year, far more than in 2022, which ended with 4,600 violent deaths, the highest in Ecuador's history, and double that total for 2021.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump faces a 4th set of criminal charges as the state of Georgia indicts him of efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss. The indictment comprises 19 defendants and outlines 41 criminal charges, carrying a potential penalty of up to 20 years in prison. Included in the list of defendants were also Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff for Trump, as well as lawyers Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman. The case originates from an alleged phone call in which Trump encouraged Georgia's top election official to locate sufficient votes to overturn his narrow defeat in the state. Trump maintains his innocence and pleads not guilty to all other criminal charges, denouncing them as a witch hunt and that they are driven by political motives against him.
Up next, death toll in the Lahaina fire in Hawaii has risen to 99. In northern India, nearly 60 people perished due to flooding and landslides. And Europe's most active volcano, Mount Etna, blows its top. Please don't go away. Matana Agila International has more stories when we get back.
Ang katuwang ninyo para mas maunawaan ang usaping ito. Pag-usapan natin Bulaga. Dumating si Mr. Tobiera, si Tony Tobiera. At doon, inisip niya na i-offer sa amin ang isang noontime program.
So, in short, natanggap namin si Tobiera. Nagkaroon na ng show. May Bulaga na.
Matagal nang sinasabi na ginagawa dapat ng DPWH. Nabawasan na ba ang kalidad ng mga programa at pelikulang gawa ng Pinoy? Sa tingin mo ba, mas okay bang negosyo na lang kaysa mamasukan? Check tayo dyan. Check tayo dyan. Check tayo dyan. Mag-reality check tayo.
Hoy, congrats to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bago mong show, bago mong bahay, Net 25, the best.
Aba, siyempre, hindi ako pwedeng kumiwalay sa inyo.
The death toll in the Lahaina fire in Hawaii has risen to 99, and Hawaii Governor Josh Green has told people he expects it to go much higher. Thomas I. Likeness has that story.
Green says the number of confirmed dead could double. He says he expects recovery crews will find the remains of 10 to 20 people a day, and Green adds it's going to take at least 10 days to finish. The governor toured the flattened town with Federal Emergency Management Agency workers. Agency Administrator Deanne Criswell says the job is dangerous and cannot be rushed.
It is extremely hazardous. There are structures that are partially standing that engineers have to clear first to make sure it's safe for the search and rescue teams to go into, make sure it's safe for the dogs to go into.
The agency has more than 300 people in Maui assessing the damage and providing help. But there's only so much the government can do in a disaster of this scale. Volunteers and donors are providing much of the frontline support to those displaced by the fire. People like celebrity chef Sheldon Simeon. Simeon and his team of chefs are working out of the kitchen of the Hawaii Culinary School about 50 kilometers away from Lahaina. They are preparing and packaging between 7,000 and 9,000 meals a day.
Food is medicine, and for these people to be able to give them a hot meal, and then even if it's something that connects them with Hawaii, that reminds them instead of something that's out of a can or out of a paper product. Hopefully it's the start of a little bit of healing.
Volunteers deliver the meals to shelters. And where are the ingredients coming from? Private chef Taylor Ponte says there's a lot of generous people.
We have local pig farmers dropping off 4,000 pounds of meat. We just got 2,000 pounds of salmon coming over from Alaska. People are dropping hundreds of pounds of local watermelon.
And while the outpouring of generosity gives some comfort to those who survived this disaster, questions are still being asked about authorities' lack of preparedness and response to the catastrophe. The answers to those questions will likely be months away. Thomas I. Likeness for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A fighter jet crashed during a performance at an air show in Michigan, with both pilots managing to safely eject just moments before it went down. Video footage appears to depict at least one of the plane's pilots ejecting before the jet crashed into some vehicles in a parking lot. The pilots were immediately rescued and transported to a local hospital, reportedly sustaining no significant injuries. The extent of any additional damage caused by the crash remains uncertain, but no casualties have been reported.
A 13-year-old boy has survived falling from a ledge at the Grand Canyon's northern rim during a family trip. Emergency crews needed 2 hours to rescue Wyatt Kaufman after he slipped off a cliff and plunged nearly 100 feet. He was flown to a hospital with serious injuries, but has since been discharged. Wyatt told a local television station that he had fallen while moving out of the way so people could take pictures. He said he had been squatting down and holding onto a rock with one hand when he lost his grip and started to fall back. Park officials reminded the visitors that although the trail is popular and has scenic views, always keep a safe distance of at least 6 feet from the edge of the rim.
An explosion and ensuing fire at a gas station in Dagestan, situated in southern Russia, have led to the tragic loss of at least 35 lives and injuries to dozens of others. The blaze reportedly started at a car repair shop before subsequently spreading to a nearby fuel station. Search and rescue operations are currently underway, with around 80 individuals reported to be injured. Tragically, several children are among those who have lost their lives, and at least 3 bodies have been recovered from the debris. Russia's investigative committee initiated a criminal investigation aimed at understanding the circumstances that led to the incident. Thousands of people marched in several Bosnian cities after a woman was murdered by her ex-husband, who live streamed the slaying. The suspect then killed 2 men and himself. Angel Membreri has the details.
the murders and the 35-year-old suspect's posting of her killing shocked the Balkan country. Sarajevo Mayor Benjamina Karic told the crowd femicide should be made a specific criminal act. She called for harsher penalties for the crimes of femicide and domestic violence. Protesters held up placards with messages such as "Stop femicide," "Say no to violence," and "Silence is complicity." On Friday, the suspect killed his ex-wife with a gun after beating her, broadcasting the crime on Instagram. According to local media, several thousand people watched the slaying, and some are believed to have encouraged the attacker. Angel Membreri for Matatag Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
At least 65 people have died in northern India after heavy rain triggered landslides and flooding. Dozens more in the Indian Himalayan region are missing. Rosel Feria tells us more.
Days of torrential downpours have washed away vehicles, demolished buildings, and destroyed bridges. Flooding and landslides are common during India's monsoon season, but experts say climate change is making them more severe and more frequent. They cause widespread devastation and deaths. Thousands of people have been stranded with key roads washed out. Power lines and communications networks have been disrupted. Schools in the region remain closed. People are being told to stay indoors and avoid going near rivers. And rescue teams are kept busy digging through the mud in a frantic search for survivors. Rosel Feria for Matatag Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The streets of a town in the Italian Alps are coated with a thick gray layer of mud following a landslide Sunday evening. Torrential rain triggered the slide. JC Yumol reports.
It's a miracle no one died in the catastrophe. In this dramatic video, you can see the mud surging through the streets of Bardonecchia. According to the local media, about 120 people fled their homes. They have been put up in Italian Red Cross camp and in hotels. There's a report that fire crews rescued 6 people from a camper van that had been swept away by water and mud. On Monday, people awoke to mud-covered streets, damaged vehicles, and a mess that will take weeks to clean up. The mud has damaged bridges in the region, and gas utilities have been turned off because of risk of an explosion. JC Yumul for Matatag Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Europe's most active volcano blew its top early Monday. Mount Etna on the Italian island of Sicily sent ash and lava high into the sky over the Mediterranean Sea. Arlene Ocampo has the details.
The mountain put on a spectacular show, spewing red-hot lava into the night sky. The eruption has forced the closure of Sicily's Catania airport because of falling ash. Thousands of travelers have been stranded. The airport may reopen Tuesday, depending on what the volcano does. Catania's mayor has banned motorcycles and bicycles from the city streets for 48 hours. That's because the ash can quickly become slippery on roads and cause accidents. Catania is a popular tourist destination. About 10 million people passed through the city's airport last year. Mount Etna erupted earlier this year in late May. Arlene Ocampo from Matatag Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
U.S. climate experts say 2023 is on track to be the warmest year on record. Estela Dominique has the details.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says there's a 50% chance this year will be one for the record books. The administration's chief scientist says so far, 2023 is the third warmest on record. Sarah Kapnick says depending on what happens in the next 4.5 months will determine if this year's record-setting. NASA scientist Gavin Schmidt says get ready for more record-breaking temperatures next year.
and the biggest impact of El Nino will actually occur in 2024. So we're anticipating that not only is 2023 going to be exceptionally warm and possibly a record warm year, but we anticipate that 2024 will be warmer still.
NASA Administrator Bill Nelson says we can't continue to ignore the high temperatures. Estela Dominique from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The heat is taking a toll on animals at the Baghdad Zoo as temperatures in the Iraqi capital hit 50 degrees Celsius. The scorching heat is making life outdoors unbearable for humans and animals alike. Elise Danielle reports.
Life is miserable for the animals in the Baghdad Zoo. The animal park has been underfunded and is in a rundown condition. Years of unrest in the country and mismanagement have made things worse. Veterinarian Wasim Sari says they do what they can to help the animals cope with the heat. They have some air conditioners and there are ponds to cool off in. Sari says the high temperatures have an impact on lifespans. He says tigers can normally live for 20 to 25 years in captivity, but in Iraq, because of the heat, they only live for 17 or 18 years. Sari says unless the zoo can be modernized, it will soon have to close. Elise Danielle from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up. Disgraced FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried is back behind bars. James Harden has some choice words for the 76ers general manager. And the blind side subject Michael Oher is alleging that the Tui family has been profiting off him for years. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment. Matanang Agila International will be back.
Ay nasa Channel 25 sa inyong television sets. At kahit analog o digital pa ang TV ninyo, ang Net25 mapapanood mo. To watch, simply scan Net25. Gamit ang inyong remote control, iscan ang Net25 sa inyong TV menu. Pagkatapos mascan, piliin ang Net25 HD mula sa listahan ng mga channels. Ang Net25 nasa cable at satellite channels din. Channel 25 sa Sky Cable, Channel 18 sa Destiny, Channel 17 sa Cable Link, Channel 14 sa Signal, Channel 38 sa GSAT. Tawagan ang cable company sa inyong lugar para malaman ang Net25 channel assignment saan man kayo sa Luzon, Visayas o Mindanao. Kaya lagi magsama-sama ang buong pamilya para matuto, makibalita at makisaya. Sa piling ng mga bigating artista at tagapagbalita. Let's net together na dito sa Net25!
Aaksyon sa lahat ng problema. Walang uurungang reklamo. Re-responde anumang sitwasyon. Kung kayo po ay may sumbong, mag-text lamang po sa 0915-415-1035. Mag-email din sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng inyong po mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang imposible at lahat may solusyon sa mga totoong certified e-responder.
Puro na kayong dalawa! Ha? Ligtas yung sarili nyo! Bakit? Nahiya ako sa short. Nahiya ako sa sarili. Puro na kayo.
Usap tayo. This is Fast Interrogation with Tita Girl. Love life or career.
Diretso lang. Ready?
Get your arms up.
Ano? Head back! Palo!
We now welcome you back to Mata ng Agila International. Judge Louis Kaplan orders FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried back to jail for violating bail conditions. This is after Kaplan concludes that Bankman-Fried had repeatedly tried to influence witnesses against him. Kaplan notes that there was a probable cause to believe that the fallen crypto tycoon tried to engage in witness tampering at least twice. Meanwhile, Bankman-Fried's lawyers insist that their client's motive was innocent in nature, but Kaplan rejects the request.
NBA star James Harden has said he will never play for the Philadelphia 76ers as long as Daryl Morey remains the team's general manager. His scathing comments come as the 76ers and Harden locked in a contract standoff. The former NBA MVP said he could no longer be part of an organization that employed Morey.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again.
The statement comes while Harden is in China for a Shoe Media event, where the remarks highlight the increasingly bitter nature of his contract negotiations with the 76ers. The former MVP reportedly told the team last month that he wanted to be traded away from the franchise after joining from Brooklyn in February 2022. But reports say that the 76ers had shut down discussions with Harden over a trade and were expecting him to report to a training camp in September. However, sources close to Harden said the player has no intention of taking part in preseason training camp.
Former NFL star Michael Oher, the subject matter of the 2009 film The Blind Side, claims that he was not really adopted by the Tuohys as seen in the movie and that they have been profiting off him for years. Prince Limonero has the scoop.
Michael Oher, a former NFL star whose life story was adapted into a movie released in 2009, the Oscar-nominated The Blind Side, has filed a lawsuit against the wealthy white family led by Sean and Leigh Ann Tuohy, who he said took him into their home but never actually adopted him. Oher also claims that after he turned 18 in 2004, the Tuohys tricked him into signing an agreement making them his conservators. This gave the Tuohys legal authority to make business deals in his name. Oher also claims that he received nothing from the millions of dollars in royalties from the movie, which starred Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw, and which grossed more than $300 million in the box office, while all four members of the Tuohy family each received millions of dollars. According to legal filings, Oher discovered this only in February of this year. Oher's filing demands an end to the conservatorship as well as both compensatory and punitive damages for this arrangement. Prince Limonero for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Drake announces a new collaboration with Bad Bunny during a Los Angeles concert in Inglewood, California. Both of them have worked together for the hit song Mia in 2018. This song peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became Bunny's breakout single as a lead artist. It also marks as Drake's 26th top 10 song on the charts and his first Spanish track. Meanwhile, Drake will release his upcoming 8th studio album For All the Dogs this September under OVO and Republic Records. He is currently on a U.S. tour with British rapper 21 Savage as part of their It's All a Blur tour to promote their joint album, Her Loss.
YouTube star Mr. Beast has teased his biggest video, which he claims is double the size of his viral Squid Game recreation. Following the release of his latest video, which fans said had crossovers with PewDiePie and the Sidemen, Mr. Beast claims his biggest video ever is on the way. The YouTube star also included several screenshots showing the enormous size of the sets used. Despite a lawsuit towards his Beast Burger restaurants, Mr. Beast continues to reach greater heights as he has long cemented himself as the king of YouTube with over 175 million subscribers. Papua New Guinea celebrates the 7th Melanesian Arts and Culture Day, underscoring unity and diversity. Hortaleza Quinola has the story.
In line with the 7th Melanesian Arts and Culture Show, the heritage of the people from West New Britain called Tumbuans showcases their songs and dance. Papua New Guinea's Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, E.C. Henry Leonard, and National Cultural Commission Director Stephen Kilanda were in Port Vila, Vanuatu to participate in the event. Honorable Leonard said Papua New Guineans must mingle together in unity and diversity. He called on them to forge relationships to ensure their respective culture heritage is protected and promoted at all times. From Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Hortaleza Quinola, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Hawaii celebrity chef Sheldon Simeon organizes his fellow chefs in a massive operation to feed wildfire victims. After the devastating wildfire raged through Hawaii's Lahaina community last week, about 9,000 meals every day are prepared and packed.
And we really want to feed all the people who are wandering around Lahaina hungry, thirsty, looking for their family, and give them some comfort as well as nourishment. And those are the people that when I come into work and we all talk about it, we're all talking about Lahaina every day. How did the food go in Lahaina? We want them to eat before it's dark, and we want them to be nourished first and foremost.
Sources say about 4,000 pounds of meat were dropped off by pig farmers, while 2,000 pounds of salmon arrived from Alaska. These ingredients are used to prepare dishes for survivors and responders. Some of the food prepared were Thai curry with local mahi for lunch, while macaroni and cheese with bolognese and tomato sauce was served for dinner. Meanwhile, volunteers pick up the food and deliver them to shelters in Lahaina.
That's actually a wonderful thing to do.
Yes, yes. And, we're really just praying for everybody that is going through that, those wildfires in Lahaina. It's just really heartbreaking.
Yeah, with natural calamities, all we can really do is continue to be kind to one another.
Yes, and it's also encouraging to see that everybody there is helping each other out.
Definitely. And for your Tuesday motivation, here's a quote from business magnate and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. People should pursue what they're passionate about. That will make them happier than pretty much anything else.
He keeps it simple.
Exactly.
Yes, he keeps it simple. It's not just what you're passionate about. When it comes to your work, it could just be your hobbies, your dreams, your ideas.
Taking care of family.
Taking care of
that can be something one is passionate about.
Yes, and that will really make you happier. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, Trusted, Connected, on point.